Welcome to the 2025 Dialogue, a masterclass series by the HR Association of India. I am Neha Jagnani, and today we are exploring a topic that sits at the very core of workplace transformation. Beyond the HR desk, designing workplaces people love. And to guide us through this conversation, we have someone who doesn't just work in HR, he redefines it. Sahil Nayar is an HR disruptor who loves blending data with intuition, strategy with storytelling, and innovation with impact. Whether he's shaping talent strategies, mentoring future leaders, or challenging the status quo, he does it with wit, wisdom, and a relentless drive to transform the way we experience work. An award winning HR professional, an author, a podcast host, and a certified happiness coach. He has been recognized over 50 times for the contribution to the field. When he is not decoding workforce dynamics, you will find him on a mountain trail or cruising through Mumbai on his Royal Enfield. Join me in welcoming the HR Bites guy, Sahil Nayar. Sahil, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure having you.
Neha, thank you so much, and a huge thank you to the HR Association of India. I think every masterclass with you, Neha, is a huge learning for me also. And thank you for having me over.
Thank you so much, Sahil. I look forward to this exciting masterclass. So, to begin with, Sahil, I want to know what does it truly mean to design a workplace that people love, and how do you measure that?
I think, this topic is so contemporary and so of our times because when you talk about workplace and you talk about love, to my mind, these are actually two aspects that should be a subset of each other, but yet many a times people look at them as two ends of a spectrum because with the way careers have now become portfolio careers, where you come, you do a job, you deliver, you get your money, and you go back. Many organizations have become so transactional because people are living quarter to quarter, and the pressure is so much to deliver on revenue that relationships between the employer and the employee have become very transactional. And therefore, at that end of the spectrum, there is no question of love. There is no question of belongingness. There is no question of we are family, right? But at the other end of the spectrum, where values are intact, where organizations don't look at quarter to quarter per se, but take a slightly longer view on talent, you see that love becomes integral. So I think, Neha, when it comes to looking at organizations that take a slightly longer view on talent, they are definitely focusing on retention. They are focusing on belongingness, and very clearly, they want their talent to not only love what work they do, but also become brand ambassadors of the organization.
Right.
Now, the space is oscillating between these two, right? We've seen the generation where you had bean bags, you had free food, you had amazing decor, and great fancy offices. Today, with many organizations not even forcing their employees to get to the workforce, or the ones that get to the workplace, essentially don't really crave for this anymore. Because what they're really looking for is, are they being heard? Are they being valued? And are they being respected? Which is far more important than if the biryani is amazing, or does my meeting room look very fancy, or do I have a foosball table or a table tennis table in my office. Now, having said that, I think the single most important metric that every organization needs to look at if they really want to ensure love sustains is how many employees are referring their friends to the organization. And here also, I think we have with this whole concept of money and gamification, I think we've lost the plot, right? Because so many people are doing it for the money without even knowing the person. So are we able to distinguish that Neha wants Sahil to work in her organization as an example because Neha thinks it's absolutely amazing and Sahil will do very well. Versus Neha thinking that, if I refer Sahil, I know Sahil on LinkedIn and he's put open to work there. And therefore, if I refer Sahil, I will get 1 lakh rupees. So I think that clear distinction needs to be done. Point number 2, when you talk about love, right? This is the age-old saying of saying Monday blues. But my question is, do you jump out of bed on a Monday morning thinking that, hey, you know what? I'm working on this project that no one has ever worked on. I'm working on this supremely important merger or deal that is going to hit the Economic Times next Monday. And therefore, I am excited to do the meaningful work that I'm doing. And I'm cognizant that not every Monday will be like this, but at least 6 out of 10 Mondays, or at least 40 out of 52 Mondays in a year, if they are like that, then you've created that ecosystem where people love being with each other.
Sure, absolutely. So it really reflects that love isn't in a, matrix or a dashboard. It is reflected in that loyalty when you're able to refer to someone, when you're being heard, you're valued, and that advocacy kind of proves, that you love your workplace. So thank you so much, Sahil. Moving on to the next question, which is how can HR move from enforcing policies to curating meaningful employee experiences?
I think that's a very nice question because when I think of the question, I actually go back to saying that policies are the grammar of work, but experiences are the poetry, right? And when you look at HR, I think HR sits at the center of every human experience. Whether it is the first phone call that goes out to a prospective candidate to say, I'm calling you because I heard about you and we have a great opening and I would love to discuss this role with you. Or it is a phone call to say, thank you so much for your entire tenure with us. We are processing your full and final, and your full and final will reach you in the next 15 days. Right? That entire journey from hire to retire or the employee life cycle is all about experiences. And I think many a times we always forget that policies have been made by humans for humans, not the other way around. And when we miss that plot, then we become what we typically call in Hindi is lakir ke fakir, right? The policy says this and therefore we need to do this. I'm not saying exception should be the rule. There is a reason why policies are in place. But blindly applying those policies without understanding the grammar of work, without understanding that poetry is written with words. But at the end of the day, like they say, right? If you're happy, you will listen to the song. But when you're sad, you will understand the lyrics. And I think that is the beauty of what HR can do. HR can actually implement the policies to the T, and no one's even listening to the song. Or HR can contextualize in this situation, in this moment, the policy is to be respected. But I think this is a genuine exception and we need to do it. Because at the end of the day, gone are the days of personnel management where HR's job was to be a moral police, looking at time card entries, looking at whether someone is doing something in office or not, watching them on CCTV camera. Gone are those days because HR's job is not to catch people whether they're coming late or leaving on time or taking half day, but actually to design work and a workplace where people show up early. And I think if you can create that kind of magic where people want to show up early. Today, there's a huge debate happening in Bombay for the last 3-4 days saying the rains have been torrential, people are being insensitive, they are calling us to work. Others are saying, I have not spoken to HR, but you please work from home because I know you will work from home. I think this is a no-brainer debate. If you're going to refer to policy on this, you've lost the team member in the first place because the team member is saying, do you even know that the moment I step out of my building, I have 4 feet of water? So do you expect me to wade through that 4 feet of water, jump into a local train that is running late? I have no surety of whether I'll make it to office, let alone coming back home. And if you're going to be that insensitive, then maybe I need to sit back and question, do I need to even work with you? So full respect for policies, but Neha, just to answer your question, I think the beauty is always in the poetry.
Which is experiences, right? So it's evidently, it highlights that policies can create culture, Sahil, but policies create structure, but experience is something that creates culture, and
Great
that
culture.
matters the most. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Absolutely.
My next question, Sahil, is what role does storytelling play in shaping the workplace culture?
I think that's something that we have seen over the last decade, right? Storytelling has actually taken center stage. Be it a CEO at a town hall, or be it the valet or the car drivers who sit in parking lots the whole day talking to each other कि आज मेरे बॉस यहाँ गए थे या यहाँ वो मीटिंग हुई या एक बहुत बड़ा डील होने वाला है, or whether it's the pantry guy telling you about the attrition that is happening in the blue collar workforce because you've taken the interest to say कि बहुत टाइम से ना वो वाले साहब नहीं दिख रहे, and he'll tell you हाँ हाँ वो बीमार है, right? So I think stories are everywhere. And I very firmly believe, and I have been consciously practicing this for over a decade now, which is as a child, Neha, I used to be a stamp and a coin collector. So if anybody went to any country, I would request them if they could bring me a coin from that country. Over the last decade, I have become a story collector. So when I meet people, I think everybody has a story, right? Just before this masterclass, we were talking about when you were in Bombay and you would come for Raksha Bandhan. There was a short story in your life also that I picked up in that 2 minute of conversation. So if we all become story collectors, I think we will move away from understanding data to understanding people. Because at the end of the day, Excel sheets don't inspire loyalty. What inspires loyalty, what shapes culture is stories. Because culture is not that poster that is put on in the cafeteria. It is actually that whisper. It is actually that water cooler conversation. It is actually that sutta break where stories are shared. And I think that is supremely powerful because at the end of the day, when stories come together, a narrative is built. And as that narrative is built, brands are either built or brands are broken.
Sure. Sure, Sahil. Beautifully put. And I can safely say story actually carries value, which a policy document may not. So that's very crucial. My next
Or
question.
Neha, let me put it slightly differently. I think policy also carries value, but policy is dead. To make that policy come alive is the story.
Sorry, perfect.
Yeah, correct.
Beautiful. So my next question, Sahil, is how can leaders balance data-driven decision with the human side of work?
I think that's a very difficult question. The question itself is so loaded that if you have to answer that question, you need to live the answer. And I think living the answer is not easy because many a times there are three people at play. There is data at play, there is your instinct or your gut at play, and there is your leadership style at play. Now, all three of them, if they are congruent and they're saying the same story, brilliant, right? Data is telling you something, your gut is also telling you, yes, I think this should happen this way. And your natural leadership style is, let's say, employee friendly. And therefore, everything is in sync, no problem. The problem comes up when either one of these are not in sync with the other two, or two are not in sync with one, or all three are not in sync. That is when the problem comes. And in my experience, what works beautifully is to understand that data is my headlight, or data is my headlight in the car, or data is my GPS. It is not the driver. And the moment you're able to distinguish between who is the GPS and who is the driver, half the problem is solved, right? Because what are you doing? You're actually trusting a technology when you don't know where to go, which is data, right? So GPS is telling you turn left, turn right, go straight, make a U-turn. So the data is saying a story. You are trying to interpret that story. Now, the question is, are you interpreting it with the right lens or not? Which is the classic problem that many of us have, which obviously now technology has improved. But 3 years back, we would get very confused whether we needed to take the flyover or not, because in the maps, we would not know कि flyover लेना है कि नीचे से जाना है. Now, of course, technology is there where it tells you take the flyover so you don't get confused, right? Because both the roads could be one on top of the other. The point I'm driving home is you are the driver. Data is just your GPS. And therefore, many a times when the going gets tough, many a times when we see that there are insane amount of pressure on businesses, many a times when we see that Excel sheet is not adding up in terms of revenue or bottom line or top line the way we want, we need to remember one simple fact, that spreadsheets or Excel sheets don't cry, but humans do. Excel sheets don't have emotions, but humans do. And even if you decide to delete one row in an Excel sheet, or a couple of rows, or a couple of hundred rows, or a couple of thousand rows, which may be employee names in an Excel sheet, please remember the spreadsheet will not cry. But when you talk to that human, who may be the only earning member in that family, who may be actually a breadwinner, that person will cry, because that person has to go back home, and that person has to go and face the family, and that person has to start figuring out that how will he or she bring bread on the table tomorrow morning. And I think the best organizations are those who understand that Excel sheets don't cry, but humans do. Excel sheets don't have emotions, but humans do. And if you're able to manage that piece while being realistic about business, I think we'll be able to balance the data and the human side question that you asked.
Sure, Sahil, beautifully put. I really like how you identified three factors, which is data, intuition, and leadership, and how the alignment makes it easy to make any decision. But if even one of them is not aligned, then it becomes a little challenging. Also, highlighting how you said data works like a headlight or a GPS, but it should not be the driver. Last but not the least, about the Excel sheets. Beautifully put. I think data might give direction, but it's the humanity that gives a meaning to that. So thank you so much for that. This
Thank
brings us
you.
to the last question, Sahil, which is what's one unconventional idea that you have implemented and that has transformed how employee experience work?
So, Neha, I don't think I can classify it as unconventional, but I think earlier on in my career, I made a shift. And the shift that I made when I was in an HR business partner role was when I would get to know that someone has resigned on the system, and I would meet them and I would ask them, why are you going? I realized that by that time the damage was done, because by the time someone has resigned, I think that person has gone through 100 conversations in his or her head, or spoken to 10 people, and realized that nothing is going to happen here, or this is not going to change, or this place is going to be like this, or my boss is not going to go away and therefore I need to go, or whatever may be the reason, right? And I think before the person reaches that stage to say, or you ask them, why are you going? If one can identify to say, what will make you stay? And I think it is a very simple change of verbiage, but it is a very, very powerful shift. And the reason it's a very powerful shift, and the idea that we actually implemented, was looking at a RAG status, a red, amber, green. We worked with the business for every single employee in every business to look at what are the flight risks. Will someone look out because they've not had an increment or not got a good bonus? Is someone unhappy? Is absenteeism very high? Are people disengaged? Are they not giving their 100% on projects? So there were various parameters that were identified. And we said we will catch the symptoms early. Because if you can catch the symptoms early, your diagnosis is much better. If you anyway bring a patient to the ICU after the patient's critical, then it's more difficult to save the life. But if there is a small virus, you can deal with it right there and then and arrest the problem rather than it becoming a compounded problem. So I think the intent was to don't wait till a resignation hits you and do an exit interview, but rather have a stay conversation. The moment you see any trigger or any kind of aberration as part of the monthly reviews that we did for all our teams. And I think that worked very well because it sent out two messages. One, that we are listening, and there is a formal mechanism to listen, not just through people voicing their opinions, but also through a lot of sensing and looking at various data models and metrics. And the second is reaching out to have that conversation, to saying, hey, is something off? Is something bothering you? And many a times we've realized that small problems that were genuine problems were solved at that stage before they became big problems and irreversible. And I think I wouldn't call it unconventional, but I would just simply say that that was one thing where we just shifted the mindset to advancing the conversation in the employee life cycle. When something is bothering, solve it there rather than it becoming a problem where the person believes now it cannot be solved.
Sure, absolutely. I think it is a rather human-centric approach, Sahil. I really liked the sentences like "Why are you resigning?" versus "What will make you stay." So that shift makes the whole difference. So thank you so much for sharing that example with us. So this brings us to the end of the masterclass, Sahil. Thank you so much for your inspiring and refreshing insights. And it shows that workplaces, people love workplaces not because of the perks or policies, but the experiences, the authenticity, and the trust that is showed. So, thank you so much for bringing light to these points.
Super. Thank you so much, Neha, for having me over and wish you and the team all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Sai.